Alright, so hi, I'm Riley Harding. I'm a PhD student in Carrick's lab. I'll be joining today on the video to give some updates on apple diseases occurring right now around pink. So we're going to go into apple scab and fire blight since they're relevant right now. So we'll start with apple scab and give a quick early season disease update on that. So just to recap on kind of the weather events to set the stage for the disease triangle. So we started with a pretty mild winter this year and warm weather leading into mid-February, early March. Most days were about higher than 40 Fahrenheit. Green tip arrived at least in western New York around late March to early April. But it was led with some cold days and mild spring freezes. So that was on April 1st and the 8th. So the models might have predicted an early green tip, but huge caveat here, computers are better at implementing degree days than the trees were at that early stage. So predicted green tip could be a little earlier than maybe what we experienced in reality. And we also had a decent snow cover and long interrupted wetting periods, so kind of interrupting the disease cycle a little bit, and cold temperatures, which always leads to kind of early season applications that are challenging and possibly confusing because we're not sure how it's going to shape up throughout the season. So what we've seen to date, so our major infection events were on April 2nd, the 9th, and 17th, and respectively about 1, 11, and 20% ask for ejection events. And it just all kind of depends on when green tip really occurred, if these were potential infection events. But the big ones were last week on April 24th, a few days back on April 29th, and those had ascospore ejection events at about 25%, so pretty high. And looking to tomorrow on May 2nd, it's about 10%, so we have another infection event coming. And so it kind of leads us to think it's going to be a moderate apple scab season thus far. There was lots of early rain, but it was cool, so it begs the question, was it too cool for apple scab? All right, and so now I'm going to hand it over to Carrick. He's going to demo NUA for us to look at that green tip.
Well, let's look at that forecast and see what's it, 5.2 is still showing an ejection event. All right, I'm going to go apple scab. Let's start with Long Island. What is it, Riverhead? Yeah. All right, what are we looking at here in Riverhead? Yep, for the first, it is showing about, looks like May 2nd, about 9% with a 5% afterwards, maybe even 3 going into the 4th. Let's look at the weather event. It looks like it's pushing that rain off, that it's obviously starting on May 2nd with about 1/4 inch of rain, but the leaf wetness bleeds on into the 3rd and 4th for a combined event. And when Riley was mentioning too cold for apple scab, 57, you see these 46 days here on May 1st. There wasn't a lot of wetting. If we check out the Mills table, which I will pop up to the probably detriment of all of us, you can start to see that when it does get cold, like 43 and 45, it needs 18 to 15 hours of leaf wetness. So had this even been a colder period, not 57, there's one of these chances if it was one of these lower areas of 3, 1, and 3 leaf wetting with a 46 in there, that might actually end up not making things like May 1st an infection event. So let's move deeper into the state. Let's go down to the Hudson Valley. And I keep typing Hudson Valley. Gonna go Campbell Hall. Let's try that one. And if you feel like the weather's erratic in the region, you can try different things out. The Hudson Valley is picking up that 10% ejection with an actual ejection in yellow on that day. It's a 10 then and a 9 on the 3rd, which means we're probably dragged into a serious situation. May 3rd, 16 hours of leaf wetness predicted, another 8 on the 4th. So things are happening. We wanted to get this video out early so that you had time to skip the pink meeting and just go spray. At least that's what we're thinking. Or if you weren't able to do it because you're spraying, you can just keep going, at least for diseases. You'll miss out on all the insect stuff. All right, let's go to Voorheesville. That's the one for the capital region that we're checking out. How are they looking? Do they have a big 10%? Oh, it looks like it might even be worse. It's a 19 and 21. We made those slide set yesterday, and the predictions are changing so fast. That's why we got to release videos so quickly and so timely on these things. 19, 21. It's about 40%. It's a big one for the Capital District in that region. 63, 54, that's high enough temperature on the Mills table to not need many leaf wetness hours, and we're looking at about 30 going into the weekend for everyone's weekend plans. Let's go to the Lake Champlain area. We do Chazy. Let's do Chazy. And then sometimes I like to show Peru just to make Mike Baysdale happy, or the growers up there. Yep, 9% on the second, 11 coming up on the third. Massive combined event that's gotten even bigger since yesterday with all the rain. Rain event predictions change all the time, but I think it's safe to say that there's going to be at least some leaf wetness. Is it too cold in the Chazy area? I don't think so. 53, 52, 55, 84, and 18. That's another 30 hours of leaf wetness coming. Riley and I sprayed earlier in the week, so we're covered for this thing because we saw this happening. And let's see if Peru is any different before we leave to the rest of the states. Which one do I like? Let's do Florence. I don't know. Is that a good one? I can't remember. Let's see. Nope, don't like Florence because it's got the... let's do FO2. Let's try that one. There we go. Sometimes if you see things blanketing out at leaf wetnesses of 24 hours, that means the sensor may be damaged and or broken. That weather station probably should be checked, the regular one. But this one looks great. It's also predicting the same thing that we saw down in Chazy. 20% ejection. Rain all over the place. Closing in on 3 inches. Is it a lot of rain? Almost less than 1/10 of an inch, but it's a long, extended wetting period. And at these colder temperatures, the weather's going to stay on forever. All right, finally, let's go to the Finger Lakes region. Let's do Interlaken. Closer to the Ithaca area as well, so it covers sort of our lower Finger Lakes individuals as well. It says we're in an infection period there now. Wow, Geneva's radically different. We had a pretty reasonable day yesterday, but Interlaken said you got a bunch of rain. And it's this low levels of ejection. 9%, 3%, 7%, 6, 7. They're adding up, and there's not a lot of rain that's heavy and washing off your material, but what it is doing is keeping those trees wet for a long period of time. And that's all the apple scab cares about. The rain washes off your fungicide, so a lot of that's where that gets dangerous. But right now, it's just constantly soaked in that area, and it's definitely not a sensor malfunction. You can check some of the other areas. We'll check the Geneva area. It might be a little different. Seems like we were sweating yesterday towards the end of the day. No, don't do there. Too late. I already pushed there. It says it's an infection period there all now. I guess it was cold and kind of humid all of yesterday. So, yeah, the Finger Lakes are in it. Wow, it's only 9. Oh, that was the big one you already mentioned earlier on the 29th. Let's go see how the SOTUS area is looking. Williamson, I've already got caps lock on. Check out around there. Another one to watch. It says, and this is why we're putting the video out now. Yeah, it's coming. The first, which it is the first. It's raining now. Oh, goodness. Or it will be raining tonight. Definitely means go out there, make sure you're well protected and well covered. You've got to break in the gap on the 29th after that big one, but it's not relenting. It's another 27 plus another, it's getting into the 30% ejection. We are hitting the final phases of the primary scab season, which will artificially extend later into the summer. But look, a lot of leaf wetness, over 30 hours in the coming days. Be prepared. Let's look at Niagara, and then we'll go in reverse order for fire blight later. Let's look at Appleton North. Really up in the Niagara region along the lake. They're getting some, but that ejection level is not so bad, 834. It's about 10%. As the weather situation changes, these predictions are looking more grim. Right now, if you're in Appleton, you got time to put on the application. Probably, I'm guessing this is going to start later tonight. We know if we check the weather forecast, but can't do that while running this video. And let's see it's a considerable amount of rain coming. Almost a half by the time it's all said and done. Reasonable temperatures. It ends on a colder note with 16, but that 49 is enough with that much leaf wetness to call it a trouble. So what now? We're going to kick it back to Riley, and we are going to talk about fire blight, and then we'll do the predictions.
All right, thanks, Carrick. So yeah, let's finish up with fire blight updates. So just to recap on the weather, just to set the stage for the disease triangle. So late April and March was cold and short spurts of hot weather followed by rain. It's that hot weather and rain that's going to drive the fire blight later towards bloom. So speaking of bloom, we're thinking orchards in Eastern New York, the Capital District, and Long Island are possibly in bloom. But just a reminder, as we talked about with apple scab, those computers are better at implementing degree days in February and March than the trees. So if you pull up, as Carrick will show you soon, if you pull up the models, they're going to be really scary because they're probably predicting more open blossoms than truly are out in the field. So the crop stage might not be totally lining up just yet. And a recap on the 24 fire blight season. So in Western New York, it was a cold bloom period, so it led to cool and dry weather. So it was a pretty light fire blight year in Western New York. In contrast, Eastern New York had a warm and early and late bloom period, and it was wet. So they had pretty high epidemics of fire blight in Eastern New York last year due to that weather pattern. So what we're seeing now in 2025, it's warm, there's scattered rains through bloom, so we're pretty concerned about fire blight this year. So if you are in bloom and you're a conventional operation, go ahead and put your antibiotics on, so either streptomycin or cassumin, and a reminder to apply that in the evening. If you're an organic operation, put your Blossom Protect out, and a reminder to do that 2 to 3 days prior, just so it can occupy that niche on the leaf surface and maybe activate some SAR. And reminder, if your flowers are closed, just don't apply. We're not worried about a fire blight infection, only when the flowers are open. If you happen to be at pink, you could consider a plant growth regulator SAR inducer program. So what that would look like is 6 ounces per 100 of perhexadione calcium, or 2 ounces of Prohex plus an ounce of Actigard at 100 gallons. And what we're doing here, so the PGR aspect is going to prevent blossom cluster invasion, and the SAR inducers, so remember defenses, so we're going to try and boost defenses for the later bloom infections. And now I'll hand it back to Carrick for some new
Let's see what's happening in fire blight. All right, I'm going to try to change the model on the fly and see what it does. Scab, fire blight, and we are in Appleton. It's predicting first blossom open date. Remember, computers just count numbers. Trees need to actually use metabolism to respond. Maybe some of your early varieties are going in the Niagara region, but the good news is it's pretty safe. I think we are having a lot of rain, but it's now becoming cooler than I thought. I expected to walk out into 70-degree weather today, and it still doesn't seem like it's gotten there yet. So I think we're fairly safe. Let's go towards Sodas area. Things will get scarier earlier on. Oh, goodness gracious. Yep, they are predicting first blossom open 2024. If you change this date, I think Riley and I were noticing yesterday that the predictions become less severe, even by changing it a couple of days. Did that do anything? I don't think so. Guess not. No, only if we... Oh, I need to go forward. I gotta pick the right day. It is the 24th, so if we went to like 28th, nothing seems to be happening, is it? No, it seems terrible. Oh, yeah, it's still, it gets much colder. So be very careful with it. If you're into high concern for fire blight, go ahead and use the earlier one. But as you see, it's very interesting as we get closer to it. It's not able to accumulate enough heat hours. So what was really hot was probably the earlier part of the week, the 30th and May 1st. But you can see the EIP dropping off to negligible levels by the 6th. So be very careful. We don't want you to waste a lot of money on, if it's today, you escaped. And as Riley mentioned, don't apply antibiotics to earlier stuff. However, if you didn't, and it was early, and there are open flowers, you can see now the Kluger blight TRV puts you at extreme risk for fire blight, and we will have rain. Now, you might be like, what about the epiphytic infection potential, the EIP? Well, it's very interesting. It's showing you near 100, which is our triggering threshold for a strep application. But as you've noticed, we've hit that cool dip that we had yesterday. And even though the EIP is high, it had a cold spot, and that drops the risk back down to low regardless of how many heat hours are accumulated. It's based on, is there water? Is there enough heat? Are the flowers open? And was there a big cold dip? And if you have no to many of those things, it will kick it back to green. So you can entirely have EIPs over 100, but a cold snap will actually drop that risk back down. Kluger blight is just counting numbers. at this particular point and allowing you to make that decision. So I would say you're pretty safe for fire blight and could probably go in with a lighter material in Williamson if you had open crops, open flowers. And let's see, let's go to Interlaken. Oh, it's an interesting mess. You can see again, we're just going to go ahead and use the default date and say the blossoms were open 10 days ago.
Unlikely.
Very unlikely, but like I mentioned before, and Riley has said a lot, those computers just count numbers. Trees have to respond to the degree days. Let's just pretend that things are well open and stuff is really cooking. It was a really scary period, but now we've had 2 degree day drops with that cold weather spikes. And it's still been wet, but the temperatures at night have been very cool. Dropped it back down, but it's picking back up on May 2nd. So if you were in the Finger Lakes region, like Cornell Orchards or down in like Watkins Glen or any of those other areas, you could be facing a potential early season fire blight infection and would need to take some action on the 2nd. Yeah, definitely. Let's go into the Capital District. It's probably going to look hotter. Always type Capital. Look at Voorheesville. Did it do anything? Oh yeah, it changed. Yeah. What are they looking like? You're in a constant level of high. It's not getting that cold at night. It will be getting cold at the beginning of the week, but you're going into the weekend with some trouble on both the EIP and the Cougar Blight fronts. You can see that there's a dip in the cold weather causing the Cougar Blight to drop. It's 4-day accumulation. And the EIP drops and builds up a little more slowly. So it looks like the 2nd or 3rd, and when you get that break in the rain, what does it show? The rain coming on the 3rd. I think I would target, in this case, getting that on before that rain on the 2nd and making an antibiotic. And remember, if you do strep, go at night. If you do Blossom Protect, stop watching the video and spray now. To get those populations up and going inside your open flowers. And then a few more will open, but that's fine. But if you can get your antibiotics in closer, and if you're Kasuga mice and go at night, they've often, some other studies have shown that the population surge at night. So getting the antibiotics on at night is also good from the standpoint of meeting those population numbers and also from the standpoint of materials not breaking down. Let's go up. Let's go to Chazy, see how they're doing. Oh, it says they got open flowers today. It's entirely possible. But because things are just opening, you're fairly safe. You're getting cool temperatures at night, I suspect. 48, look at that thing. It's going to drop that EIP back down. You should be very safe. You could go in probably with biopesticide at best, or if you have open flowers, probably just put on some Blossom Protect and just smile. You should be in good shape. I don't think you need a hardcore antibiotic just yet. You might want to wait and see if things get warmer, but it looks like they're getting colder later in the coming into the next week, and by then we'll have a new video. All right, what else do we got there? Let's go to the Hudson Valley. That's where things get wild. Gotta spell it. Campbell Hall Crest. It's dark times. Once again, this is the big time. There is water coming. We're well over into the hundreds. I would say it's time for if you have open flowers, and you probably do on some blocks, the most susceptible ones, go hard with the antibiotics. If you want to, Blossom Protect is very effective. You could do it. Yep. I'd say go closer to the evening or closer to the beginning of that May 2nd infection period. Open up your phone apps, look and see when the rain is predicted. And if you need days, I guess you start doing it tonight. But if you just need hours, then see if you can get it as close to that 176 as possible or right before that rain, which it looks like it's a 1/10 of an inch of rain. If it keeps raining, then you probably got to go today. Let's see what the Riverhead's looking like. How's Long Island? Oh. They must be feeling a cold surge, 51, 60, 60, and these green temperatures aren't so hard for fire blight. No accumulations. If you're in bloom on Long Island, take it easy. Use a biopesticide. Put on some Blossom Protect and coast all the way through to Paddle Fall. And I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yep. So thanks for checking us out. We'll see you at the meetings.
Yep. Thank you.